Hundreds of thousands of small businesses and large corporations have been feeling the labor crunch for many months. Countless restaurants have had to shorten hours of operation or even close their doors entirely. Businesses across the board continue to turn down clients because they don't have enough skilled staff. One area that's been hit particularly hard is the leisure and hospitality sector. The latest data from August 2021 shows that there are more than 1.7 million job openings in the field, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Ravindra Jayara is feeling these effects firsthand. Jayara is the owner of Chic Chef Catering, serving the Chicagoland area. During peak wedding season, he can have more than 200 employees working on a given weekend at several different weddings. However, this past year was one of the hardest summers in business because he simply couldn't find enough part-time seasonal employees to work catering events.
To be honest, I think it was a lot. It was a lot of people weren't ready to come back. Maybe some didn't feel comfortable to come back. There wasn't a lot of responses. I think a lot of people maybe switch industries. I think this is a year of entrepreneurship too. A lot of people started things. So it was just across the board, different reasons.
Throughout 2021, Jayara had to turn down several catering opportunities because he didn't have enough help. He understands that the hospitality industry is grueling, with long hours and a lot of time spent on your feet. There's no doubt that it's a tough job. To help get more hands on deck, Jayara did substantially increase hourly wages for his workers. This adjustment helped bring in more applicants, but he says despite the pay raise, it's still not back to pre-pandemic levels. On top of this, he also dealt with labor scarcities and strikes in other industries having ripple effects on his business. For instance, the recent labor strike at the El Milagro tortilla plant in Chicago forced him to rework his menus in response to a months-long tortilla shortage.
It's like a domino effect, The labor shortage is not just here, but it's who's giving us our products, who's giving us our things that we need to produce the events, and that's the whole chain.
Across the U.S., many workers are quitting or going on strike in search of better pay, benefits, or working conditions. Just in the last few months, thousands of employees at large companies like Kellogg and John Deere, as well as steel workers in West Virginia and Ohio, have walked off the job. Several news headlines have already titled this period the Great Resignation. In July alone, 4 million Americans quit their jobs. In the same month, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that there were almost 11 million open positions across the country, a record-breaking number. So, what's driving this national labor shakeup? Dr. Abigail Wozniak is a senior labor economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, where she's the director of the Opportunity and Inclusive Growth Institute. She says the almost 2-year-long pandemic is a major driving force.
The pandemic is a tremendous shock that we all experienced at the same time in very different ways. But nevertheless, it's a common shock that I think has caused people to ask lots of questions about how they spend their time and what they value and what they trust and where they are valued. Those are really powerful questions.
Wozniak believes that only time will tell if this new viewpoint will lead to more significant changes. For many employees, competitive wages, job security, and upward mobility are front and center instead of add-on perks like free tuition. However, as of yet, there have been no big shifts in overall pay.
I think, unfortunately, we're not seeing the kinds of wage increases that would, I think, to me, really indicate significant movement in worker power. So there's definitely, kind of like I alluded to, there's a lot of negotiation happening, but the negotiation is not over. And so I think it is too early to say if the pieces of the pie are going to change size and kind of who's going to get more and who might get less, or whether kind of work relationships will look largely like they did after the pandemic. I think it's just too soon to say. I feel like in a gross sense, the negotiation really is ongoing. And right now, the wage data, to me, don't suggest real movement from prior to the pandemic.
While wages are not yet drastically increasing across the board, there are more options out there. In today's worker-favored economy, people are thinking more closely about the job commitments they make.
Jobs, as we measure them, are actually matches. So it means that, there's an employer out there who has decided to take someone on board, and vice versa. It's a worker who's decided, I'm going to follow this schedule and make this part of my routine, and I'm going to be there day in and day out. If we think about what it's like trying to start a new job or what it's like having a new colleague, it really involves a very big, almost relationship-like component. And I think it's important to recognize that jobs are that in many senses. But those are hard to construct when out of kind of non-existence, out of thin air, so to speak. So it turns out it's much easier to break a match and separate it than it is to form a new one. We learned in the pandemic that separating them was easy. And so part of what's contributing to this is just that it takes a very long time for those new relationships to form. And I think that we're experiencing in part just inherently a slower recovery than we experience kind of a decline in that employment rate.
Another big factor that's contributing to so many openings in the market is the aging U.S. population. Across the country, fatigue and fears around the virus accelerated retirement for millions of baby boomers already on the cusp.
Some data suggests that we're as many as 2 million retirements kind of ahead of where we would have been if we had stayed on the pre-pandemic retirement trend. Certainly that's something that was coming to the U.S. labor force, but the pandemic really accelerated that. And so that's why I think it's such a huge question mark as to what is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years. It's really unclear whether those workers choose in the end to go back. They've already made a significant step by kind of stepping out of the labor force. Undoing those steps is hard for people.
With so many people retiring, Wozniak predicts that many businesses will have to eventually invest in younger employees and train them to fill these positions. One additional route that corporations are looking at is automation.
Investing in folks, thinking hard about how to allocate the work they have to do across the people that they can get, knowing that with an aging workforce, they're going to have to turn to younger workers. They're going to potentially have to think about how to reorganize work and avoid burnout while they're spreading it over maybe a smaller set of employees. But at the same time, they have to think about, are they going to be turning to technology to try to help with those challenges? And I really think that's kind of the balance that we'll have to see play out. And I hope that employers will think carefully about it. I hope there'll be great policy to help them, guide them in those decisions, and kind of support them in making work kind of feasible and rewarding for a large number of folks, complementing it with technology when they need to. But I think those are two forces that we really need to think seriously about contending with over really the next kind of 10 years or so.
There are a lot of challenges facing the U.S. labor economy in coming years. From post-pandemic shakeups to the retirement boom, employers are in for an interesting ride, to say the least. Back in Chicago, Ravindra Jayara is holding out hope that he'll be able to attract more help by next wedding season.
I think that people will come back slowly. I don't know if it's going to be as fast as we hope, but I think from our perspective, raising the wage has helped retain more talent, and the shortage is hand in hand with also, from their perspective of some laborers is looking for better opportunities and, better living and better opportunities. So that kind of maybe was a reset to let some of the people in business also know that, we got to take care of our labor force. We got to take care of our employees. They're our bloodline. They are working hard for us. So we got to work together as a team,
To find out more about this topic and our guests, Dr. Abigail Wozniak and Ravindra Jayara, visit viewpointsradio.org. You can find out more about Jayara's catering business, Chic Chef, by heading to chicchefcatering.com. For more behind the scenes, search Viewpoints Radio on Twitter and Facebook. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price.
Flu season is here, and flu is similar enough to COVID-19 to create dangerous confusion. SARS-CoV-2 can result in more serious illness, but initial symptoms are often similar: fever and chills, a cough, runny nose, and shortness of breath. COVID-19 seems to spread more easily than flu, and people are often contagious longer. Dr. Manoj Gandhi, Senior Medical Director at Thermo Fisher Scientific, says, unfortunately, you can't tell the difference by symptoms alone.
Simultaneous testing for SARS-CoV-2 and influenza viruses is essential. Multiplex PCR technology allows for testing of multiple viruses and co-infections at the same time, which provides proper diagnosis, reduces transmission of COVID-19, monitors the spread of both COVID-19 and flu, and saves valuable testing resources.
Multi-pathogen PCR testing helps drive swift and accurate treatment decisions to help simultaneously manage flu season and the COVID-19 pandemic. Find out more at thermofisher.com/COVID-flu information.
More than 80% of people say that vision is the most important sense. So why do about half of us skip our annual eye exam? Dr. Valerie Sheedy-Pallone, optometrist and vice president of Eye Care Solutions at VSP Vision Care, shares why you should book a comprehensive eye exam, even if your eyes feel fine.
Comprehensive eye exams are more than just visual correction. They can also help detect signs of underlying chronic health conditions like diabetes, which show no obvious symptoms, especially in its early stages, which is why catching these diseases sooner with the help of an eye exam is so crucial. Your eye doctor can tell you more about your overall health than you may ever know. We do that by dilating your pupils or using non-invasive technology to look at the blood vessels in the back of your eye.
VSP Vision Care is the only not-for-profit vision benefits company in the U.S. and has been a leader in health-focused vision care. Schedule a comprehensive eye exam with an eye doctor today. It's easy to find one near you at vsp.com. That's vsp.com.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.
Coming up on Viewpoints.
This is an invisible population nationwide. It's a swelling population. This is America.
Soaring housing prices are driving more and more people into homelessness. Then,
control is an illusion. Companies offer some choices, but they don't offer choices like stop surveilling me.
The Digital Privacy Conundrum. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.